So you're intrigued by the idea of now using a margin loan with the share portfolio that you've been building up over the last couple of years, but you're also feeling a little bit jittery. How do you know which margin loan is best for you? And more importantly, how do you know whether you're truly ready to embrace the potential risks and rewards of this strategy to help you achieve your financial goals and dreams? Now, don't worry, that's why I'm here, and I'm going to help you navigate through all of these questions and concerns right now. Welcome back, everyone, to Sugar Mama's Fireplate, the podcast that ignites your financial wisdom in a fun, enjoyable, dynamic, and inspiring way. And I am financial planner Canna Campbell, here to help guide you, inspire you, and empower you all the way. Now, today's bonus episode is actually a follow-up to our recent discussion about margin loans, a topic sparked by our listeners' request. And in that episode, we dove into how margin loans work and how they can help propel you towards achieving your financial goals and dreams. And of course, we also went through the inherent risks and the strategies for managing these risks wisely in a proactive manner. Now, if you haven't already listened to this particular episode, I highly recommend going and listening to that one before delving into this particular episode. That way, you'll have a full grasp of all the intricacies of margin lending and how they can help or potentially hinder your wealth creation journey. Now, in the upcoming minutes, I'm going to delve into who margin loans are best suited to, explore alternative strategies and ideas that rival margin lending, and also reveal a personal pet peeve of mine regarding this financial tool. But before we begin, my quick reminder. Whilst I'm going to be sharing with you my insights, I need to remind you that all of my content, including this episode, is general in nature. If you want personal advice about what you should be doing and where you should be investing and which products to use, please go and see a financial planner. And of course, you can always refer to my license details in the podcast notes. All right, let's get started by looking at who margin loans are best suited to. So here is my checklist and the rationale behind each point. Number 1, high growth or growth investors. These are investors who are incredibly comfortable with high levels of volatility, natural market volatility, particularly over the short to medium term, and they have very high levels when it comes to managing risk and being comfortable with that. Number 2 is experienced investors. Margin lending is definitely not suitable or appropriate for beginners. Investing in shares is a whole new world, and it definitely takes a bit of time, a bit of experience, a bit of practice before you start to really find your feet with the share market and your own share portfolio. I would never recommend that someone who's just started up their share portfolio jumps into margin lending. You really need to make sure that you've got some experience under your belt. You understand how the market works, the high levels of volatility, the risks, the pitfalls, the setbacks, the volatility before you start looking at high-risk strategies such as borrowing to invest. Number 3, long-term investors. Borrowing to invest, whether it be a margin loan or debt recycling, whatever product you might want to use, is a strategy for long-term investors because you need time to allow the gearing strategy to work its magic with you alongside compounding interest. So it is essential that you understand time is essential to harness the power of gearing. Number 4, strong cash flow. In order to be able to service the loan, accommodate future interest rate rises, and actually reduce that investment loan or margin loan if you're trying to build cash flow positive passive income in your life to achieve your goals and dreams, it is extremely important that you have a strong, healthy cash flow. That is incredibly important. Number 5, a strategic game plan. Financial success comes from adhering to a well-defined, mapped out financial plan that is in positive alignment to all of your financial goals and the deadlines for those financial goals. Taking out a margin loan is not something you do spontaneously by just like having a go or experimenting. It's something that is being put strategically in place and is quite often in correlation with other financial strategies that are going along in the background, such as regular savings plans, debt reduction plans, maybe even some salary sacrificing as well. But there is a strategic game plan in place, and that is reviewed on a regular basis with backup options if things don't go to plan. Number 6, tax efficiency. Whilst the interest on your margin loan is most definitely tax deductible, you should never invest in something or take an investment strategy up purely because of the tax savings. The tax savings is one of many benefits when it comes to borrowing to invest. But generally speaking, the type of people who would use a margin loan are people on a high marginal tax rate so that they can make the most of their tax dollars. Number 7, people who have enough and the right amount, emergency money. As I explained in the previous episode, you would never want to use your emergency money to pay for the interest or prepay the interest on your margin loan. These are two very separate expenses and requirements. You must make sure that you have emergency money set aside. And of course, that is separate to managing your LVR. You never want to be put into a situation where you are forced to have to sell shares and potentially crystallize losses on your share portfolio. And finally, number 8, non-property asset holders. One of the great things about margin lending is it allows you to access investment loans without having to put security such as a property. Now, for millennials who don't own property or don't own property yet or don't want to own property, but really want to focus all of their energy in building up a multi-million-dollar share portfolio, this is where a margin loan can come in really handy because otherwise, without this, it can make it quite frustrating and challenging to be able to access equity and borrow that money in the first place. And because your home is not up for grabs, it's not secured against the loan, because the actual underlying investments are secured against the loan, it does make it a lot easier and adds a valuable tool to help magnify the growth of your portfolio when used in the right way. And of course, taking into consideration managing those risks in a proactive way. So the next question is what would you look for in a quality margin loan product? Because there are a lot out there. So here is my checklist of things that I would look for in a quality margin loan. The first one is obvious, and that is a competitive interest rate. Now, I looked this morning at the interest rates that various margin loan providers are offering, and I was quite surprised as to how much they really vary from, 7.5% all the way up to 10.5%. So it pays to invest time doing your research and making sure that the margin loan that you go with has a competitive interest rate. And remember, the more you can save on your interest rate potentially means the more money you can invest in your portfolio. Number 2, ongoing fees. You really need to make sure that you read the fine print when it comes to margin loans. They quite often have various different types of fees that are triggered in different situations for different people. So read the fine print and look at what these particular fees are. And again, always go and compare them against other products. Number 3, great customer service. There is nothing more frustrating than when you're trying to navigate through a website or find a particular form or something's going wrong and you can't access your account and there is no one there to help you. So you want to make sure that there is a good customer service system in place to help you through any problems that you might have, particularly in consideration to buying and selling shares, because we all know how incredibly volatile the market is, and not being able to get a hold of someone or get someone to help you in time can actually come with a lot of financial pain. So never underestimate the importance of customer service. Number 4, margin call safety guards. Okay, this is a combination of things. Number 1 is making sure that there are adequate and generous LVRs. Generally speaking, the higher the LVR limits that a loan provider gives you, the less likely you are to get a margin call, because there's a higher threshold to trigger that margin call for that loan provider. You also want to make sure that they have good, healthy buffers in place because, as I said, the market's very volatile. Something might come close to triggering a margin call during the day, but then maybe because of that buffer doesn't actually trigger it. So you want to make sure that there are some healthy buffers of around about 5%, if not more, in place around that LVR. And then the other thing that's I think is really underestimated when it comes to looking at those LVRs is to make sure that your potential margin loan provider has consistency with their LVRs. There is nothing worse than when you have a share portfolio with an attached margin loan that's looking in a very safe space with its LVR, and then all of a sudden your margin loan provider's LVRs reduce. And instead of offering, say, 70% on your bank stocks, they now only offer 50%, which puts your margin loan in jeopardy. And you either need to quickly pay down some of that loan or offer more security or look at selling some shares. So you want to make sure that there's consistency in what those LVRs are. They don't change them too often. And of course, that there is a wide range of different companies and stocks and industries covered on their approved lists so that they can actually offer you the money that you want in the first place. So adequate LVRs, safe buffers, wide buffers, and maintaining consistency in how they calculate those LVRs. Number 5, varied approved stocks and funds. You want to make sure they have a wide, diverse range of investments to gear against. This will help ensure that your portfolio is diversified, any existing shares in your portfolio are suitable in offering security, and that margin loan actually works for you and your investment decisions. Number 6, flexible terms. You want to make sure that your margin loan provider has flexibility. Can you fix your loans? Can you fix part of your loans? What are the variable rates? Can you change that during the year? Can you prepay the interest on your margin loan? And do they offer regular gearing plans? Having this flexibility is really valuable, particularly as you may tweak and change your financial strategy from year to year. Number 7, no penalties. If you decide to pay out your margin loan, assuming it's not fixed, making sure that there are no early payment fees. Again, read the fine print. Number 8, broker compatibility. Quite often, a lot of margin loan providers have a partnership or agreement with a particular trading platform. So you want to make sure that that margin loan provider has an agreement in place with where your portfolio is currently held. If not, it may mean having to move your shares around. Just means a bit of extra paperwork involved, which for some people can be incredibly frustrating. So check that the margin loan provider that you're looking at and is ticking the right boxes for you is actually available for the current platform that you are already using. And finally, number 9, making sure that they have the right loan sizes available when it comes to your margin loan. I remember speaking to someone who applied for a margin loan. They were so incredibly excited. They got all the way through and then they realized that the minimum margin loan size was $50,000. And they actually only wanted a margin loan of $20,000. So unfortunately, they wasted their time applying for the wrong margin loan product. So really check the loan size range. And this can quite often range between $20,000 up to $1 million. And again, that interest rate also may change with the size of the loan. So again, it comes back to that competitive interest rate and doing your research. All right, so now I'm going to share with you my personal gripe around margin loans. And it really does focus around the interest rates that these margin loan providers charge. Now, obviously, we are in a high interest rate environment, and they only seem to be heading right now in one direction, where they're going to become increasingly more expensive. But to illustrate my frustrations and give you that insight and perspective, I want to let you know that I am currently paying just over 8% for my personal margin loan that I have in place against my own share portfolio. However, when I look at my home loan, my non-deductible home loan, that interest rate that I am currently paying today is 5.69%. So there is almost, if not more, a 2.5% increase in interest for a loan that is actually used to purchase something that is growing in value. And what's even more ironic or just downright stupid in my opinion is when I look at my portfolio, which is a diversified portfolio, I naturally have an allocation towards the financial sector, predominantly banks. So if the banks view an investment loan as risky and therefore need to charge me a, say, 2.5% higher interest rate to lend me money on my high risk investments, what does that say about themselves? Because I'm actually using that borrowed money to be investing in those banks themselves that are lending me the money in the first place. It doesn't make sense. So I really struggle to see how these margin loan providers can get away with charging over 8%. And I have to say, my margin loan interest rate was actually kind of competitive, especially when I looked at the other interest rates on margin loan providers that were hitting the 10% mark, the 10.5% mark. So that is my personal gripe, my frustration, and I would really love to see that the margin loan interest rate environment become a lot more competitive and a lot more considerate, considering these are the tools that are helping everyday Australians actually build financial freedom and independence for themselves. So having these interest rates set so high seems counterintuitive. I guess for me, it's a perplexing contradiction. And then finally, I'm going to move on to exploring some alternatives to margin lending that I think are most definitely worth exploring and considering if you want to start looking at using a gearing strategy in your wealth creation journey. The first one is a home equity, that is debt recycling, utilizing your home by borrowing money secured against the property and then going in and investing it. The benefit of this is you are quite often able to access a far more competitive interest rate than you would on your margin loan. It tends to be 50 basis points or 1% higher than what you were currently paying on your home loan. So typically a lot cheaper than that 8.5% that you'd be paying on a margin loan. But obviously the risk there is that your home is up for grabs if you don't meet all your loan repayments and service that debt responsibly. The second idea is using something like an equity builder. This is a monthly payment plan, and I would kind of liken it to buy now, pay later for shares, where you take out a loan and there are no margin calls, but you are paying the loan off through detailed loan terms, which can range between 3 years to 10 years. So very much like lay buying shares. And that's most definitely an option, but of course, there is a loan attached and there is an interest attached, and you have to pay that loan off in the agreed time. But it does remove the risk of a margin call, which can really appeal to a lot of people. The third option is looking at something like an investment fund multiplier. Now, this is very similar to the equity builder, but there is still a margin call risk. And if a margin call happens, you actually have the option to start repaying that loan down and restoring that LVR back to a safe level again, which can potentially save you more money than making traditional lump sum repayments because you only need to use that cash flow when that LVR gets into a danger zone. For some people, and I am inclined to agree with this can be a bit more of an aggressive strategy depending on how you are managing that LVR. So bear that in mind. You need to do your research and read the fine print. And then finally, there are more innovative products such as Fund Later. These are where you can borrow up to $6,000 for investing in very basic portfolios. And they typically are those generic growth, high growth, balanced, conservative cash investment portfolios. And they have integrated gearing within that product. But again, having that borrowing limit set at $6,000 is considered quite low and very conservative, and it may not be appropriate for a lot of people out there who are really looking to move their portfolios to 6-7 figure diversified share portfolios. However, it is most definitely an option out there for people with smaller portfolios that again want to take it slow and steady, especially when it comes to borrowing to invest. Now, this wraps up today's episode. As I have mentioned, there is a world of choices out there when it comes to making financial decisions. But the cardinal rule is never invest in something you don't fully understand. If you don't understand something, don't give up and throw the towel in. Just spend some more time exploring and educating yourself so that you do understand. And when you come out the other end and you do understand it, you'll know whether that product is right for you and right for your goals, your dreams, and your deadlines. So take your time to educate yourself. Ask lots of questions. I'm always here to help. And if you do decide to use borrowing to invest, always proceed cautiously. Take it slow and steady. Get financial advice from a qualified and licensed financial planner. Always check back in with your financial goals and the deadlines to those goals. Check your risk profile and, of course, do a budget. Make sure you can service the interest repayments, including potential interest rate rises and the ability to pay those loans off in time within your deadline. By going through all of these points, you will feel so much more comfortable when it comes to using this type of product or something very similar. And above all, when you're looking at your financial strategy, a quick reminder to always make sure that you're setting goals that give you amazing sense of direction and purpose, that can be tracked and monitored easily so that you can see the progress and you feel proud about yourself and what you're achieving in watching your passive income streams grow, taking you one massive step closer to achieving financial freedom and independence. All right, that is it for today's bonus episode. Thank you everyone for listening. If you have any requests or any thoughts, please don't ever hesitate to reach out to me at Sugar Mama TV on Instagram. And of course, I would absolutely love it if you could share your feedback through sharing this podcast on your Instagram stories, mentioning it to your family and friends, tagging them in my posts on Instagram, and best of all, leaving me a rating and review for this podcast channel. Let's chat again next Monday morning about your wealth creation journey.